Welcome to the Aussie Game podcast, where we talk all things Australian football. A heartbreaking night for Australian football fans overnight as Cam Devlin's Hearts come so close to breaking a 41-year-old record, only to fall at the final hurdle. But there was more devastation to come as Jackson Irvine and Connor Metcalfe St Pauli were relegated from the Bundesliga on the final day of the season. It wasn't any better midweek as Middlesbrough lost to the Saints, despite Riley McGree opening the scoring as the Spygate saga continues to roll on. But there's plenty of positive things to talk about as well, with Matt Ryan at the centre of Levante's push to stay in La Liga, a star Socceroos securing Champions League football, and a Matilda signing off in style. We've also had more players added to our ever-expanding pre-World Cup training camp. Back home, we've seen huge crowds witness absorbing A-League men's semi-finals, Melbourne City's women's team on the cusp of history, and World Cup qualification for our Joeys and young Matildas. All that and more coming up, and we'll finish with our team of the week. What a week, Moppa. Can you believe that our opening World Cup game is in 4 weeks?
Oh, absolutely. It's all happening, isn't it? And well, we had some massive controversial moments this week, and like you said, yeah, the big stage is coming. I think it's probably good timing because of all the amount of controversy that we've had in a few of the leagues, with a lot of pressure on a lot of refereeing and a lot of FAs, and wow, it's been a monstrous couple of weeks. So, yeah, I think the World Cup, it always brings everyone together. I think it'll be a nice time, and I don't think it could come at a better time and place to start re-talking about the positive points rather than what's happening around some of the leagues and the controversial decisions that are leading to that angst, and probably, well, they're probably heightened, the challenges that they've got because it's so close to the complexity of relegation, promotion, or titles, isn't it? And the amount that's on the line, is the pressure is just been enormous, and you can see it going through everybody.
Absolutely, mate. I love your positivity, but I'm not holding that much hope that we're going to have a controversy-free World Cup both on and off the pitch. But fingers crossed, and let's hope that is the case. But let's start our wrap. We're going to start in Scotland this week because, yeah, that's the story as far as Aussie fans are concerned. Let's set it up to start with midweek. We saw Cam Devlin score for Hearts in a 67-minute performance, and they go on to record a 3-0 win over Falkirk. Also in action at the same time, Martin Boyle scored his 9th goal of the season for Hibs as they beat Rangers 2-1. Boyle played 78 minutes and Jack Iredale played a full game. But this is where some of the controversy started, Moppo, wasn't it? Because Celtic beat Motherwell 3-2. Johnny Kachumba's playing 81 minutes and Oscar Priestman getting a couple of minutes off the bench. But it was a late penalty, very, very controversial one. And it really did change the outlook of the final day because Hearts were playing Celtic, and it really changed the landscape because all of a sudden their Hearts were going to be able to lock in the title just about, or they had more of an advantage, and then it just changed it, didn't it?
Yeah, it was tough, and it was tough on like all people who watched it, and obviously gauged a lot of reaction from around the world, and obviously we know why, because of the poorness of really the decision. And I don't think the Scottish FA really helped the situation either by diffusing it. I think they actually enraged it by, obviously sticking up with the referee, but they probably should have, ruled that it was probably a mistake and they made the wrong decision. But no one's actually stood up and actually taken any ownership of that, which has inflamed people more. And obviously the adversity of what Hearts then had to go to, which was the situation that what I was more concerned of was the fact that the league leaders only got 2 home games and the team that comes second got 3 home games, and they've pictured the Scottish FA into the final game being at home at Celtic, which was not only controversial within itself, but probably not fair within the rules of the way they finished during the regular season. But what it did entail is this absolutely already built up, action-packed final game And with all the controversial moments, the penalties, the draw, the incidents prior to that as well, when Hearts played Motherwell as well, where they were denied penalty, and it kind of took the gloss off, what was the football, and that much emotion built up between that time and all these decisions, it turned into an absolute disaster for Scottish FA. And I don't think Celtic, although the probably Celtic fans don't care, but I think it's not a really good look for football, what happened last night. And yeah, it just made the complete whole situation worse because it just was one decision after another that led to the build-up that happened last night as well. So it's disappointing. We don't like to see it, but I must say, if we take all the decisions and you know, the the resilience that Hearts had to show with all the controversy, they've done an incredible job this year. They've led the Scottish Premier League right up until the last day, right from the start. They've built their football club after a really poor year last year when there was probably high hopes. But I think they've got their ownership structure right. They've got a good depth of players now. And I think financially they've achieved Europe. So that is a really big situation that they had by, getting Europe and getting that football back. So I think financially that'll be a big help. And yes, there's going to be a lot of talked about moments that obviously led to the final outcome, but they put on a hell of a fight. And I think they'll rue the most, if you take away all the emotion of the decisions, they'll rue the most where they didn't beat Livingston. They had a 2-2 draw with them, and then they didn't beat them in the previous tie either. And they really mucked it up against the lower teams in a crucial stage just after October, November. And it probably cost them more than what we realised at the time because they had that huge lead and it just got pegged back right down to the final wire. So if you look at their games, Celtic hadn't beaten them to this point with Hearts taking the spoils and a draw. But obviously the last game counted the most, didn't it, when it come down to the fine margins? And unfortunately, it favoured Celtic on the night.
Let's put the Aussie lens on it, mate, and look at it in regards to Cam Devlin. Yeah, the result 3-1 Celtic to get them the league, and all kinds of controversy as well with fans invading the pitch, which wasn't a nice scene as well. But Cammy Devlin has had an absolutely amazing season for Hearts. It's really come out of nowhere in a sense, but he's probably one of the best players in Scotland until he got injured, and then he's had a few setbacks and only been able to appear just towards the back end of the season, which has also disrupted his opportunities to be called up for the Socceroos for a few different windows as well. But what an outstanding season that Cam Devlin has had. Let's not forget Callum Nieuwenhof also on the books at Hearts, but he's been dealing with some long-term injuries. So we hope to see Nieuwenhof back on the pitch soon as well. But what an outstanding season from Cam Devlin. He is out of contract with Hearts at the end of the season, so he does have options on whether to re-sign or look at somewhere else. So 2 questions for you, mate. Do you think he's going to re-sign with Hearts, and what chance of him being called up into the Socceroos squad?
100% re-signing for Hearts. I think when you're starting in the midfield for Hearts and you've got so much plaudits, which he did throughout the year before that really bad injury, and he just couldn't get back on the pitch. He tried hard and just kept getting re-injured. He'll definitely re-sign for Hearts. I think it'd be a smart move. I think we talked about this around January when we realised it was in that 6-month period. But the options there are for him absolutely because he's a commodity now, isn't he? He's had a good breakout year there, but Europe beckons for Hearts, and I think they'll only get stronger. I think they've come so close, and I think this will galvanise their group. And I think when they do succeed, it'll even make this moment probably better for what obviously it is with that devastating miss last night. But I think he'd be silly to go anywhere else. He's got his footprint in Hearts now. So look, where would he go? Probably options would definitely be a championship type player, I would say. Box to box midfielder, combative. That's the kind of level I think, and that suits his style. If he wants to improve himself, maybe he should go to somewhere like Holland and try to get a bit more technical. Like if you look at the Socceroos, which is his second question, do I think he'll get picked? If I was picking the side, I'd pick him, but I don't think he'll make the side. I think we would have seen him prior in the last 12 months, and he was picked once but never played. I just don't think he's on the radar, Popovic. I think the midfield, even with Yazbek missing and O'Neill injured, I just don't think he's ever been put in there or shown around Popovic. I thought he would have picked him by now if he was in the making. With Popovic, I think he's quite set on his formation. He's quite set on his players. He's quite set on his style. And if you haven't been in that mix within the last 12 months, I'd be very surprised if he pulled a rabbit out of a hat and said, "No, you're in." But I think if we were talking about this the other night, he'd probably pick five sixes, or 5, 6, and 8s, whichever way you go. 5 midfielders in that middle there, and you know he'd be right. He'd be right in the mix. He's probably level with probably all of them, but I guess Pop was looking for certain style with either Ballard, Ocon, O'Neill, and
Right.
if we look at Jackson Irvine and O'Neill in the last 12 months, they've been the stalwarts apart from when Jackson Irvine's injured, and we've tried Ocon, Ballard, Yazbek, who won't be there. And Robertson also has been selected, so Cam Devlin once. So to answer your question, yes, he'll stay with Hearts, and no, I don't think he'll get picked for the Socceroos, which will be very disappointing.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, I agree with you. If it were me picking him, I'd have him in there. But yeah, big question mark over whether Popovic would pick him, which is devastating for Devlin given the season that he has had. But it's kind of what we anticipate. In other news in Scotland, we've seen that Martin Boyle has re-signed with Hibs as they close out their season, finishing 5th, going down 1-0 at home to Motherwell, who secured 4th place and Conference League qualification. So Martin Boyle played a full game. Ante Suto came on in the 70th minute, and no game time for Jack Iredale. For Motherwell, Johnny Katumbas and Oscar Priestman came on in the 73rd. Let's head over to England now, mate. As I mentioned in the opener, we had some devastation for Riley McGree's Middlesbrough during the week. Riley McGree scored, but Middlesbrough conceded in injury time to lose 2-1 to Southampton. A bit of controversy around there. Obviously, pre-game, there was some allegations from Middlesbrough of spying from Southampton, which there was some proof of that post-game. So, yeah, fair bit of edginess on the touchline and also post-match as well. And as far as I'm aware, that decision is standing for the moment for Southampton to be playing in that championship playoff final against Hull City. But plenty of pressure on the EFL, and Middlesbrough did put out a statement last couple of days to put some pressure on them as well. But can't see it being overturned, but it's a shame for Middlesbrough and it's a shame for Riley McGree. But look, similar to Hearts, they probably had it in their hands and they went through a bad spell of games where they dropped points to lower down the table teams, and it probably got themselves to blame for having to go the long way around through the playoffs. Yeah, mate, absolutely devastating for Riley McGree and, of course, Sammy Silvera as part of that Middlesbrough setup. But, yeah, they'll rebound again. Unfortunately for Riley McGree, he had some injuries again throughout the off-season. So big off-season for him, I think, to try and get his body right post the World Cup. And hopefully Middlesbrough can go again and have another crack at getting promoted to the Premier League. But a couple of big Matildas had some farewell games overnight, Mopper.
Sam Kerr, she arrived for her last game last night for Chelsea. What a beautiful moment as she walked in. Fans were all there, and geez, Chelsea did it well, didn't they? Recognising her, the greatest Chelsea goal scorer. What a goal! She opened the scoring against Man U, which ended up being the winner in the game, and the appreciation of Sam's farewell in her final as she walked off in the 89th minute, thanking everyone. In a wonderful moment and a standing ovation. And then they had the presentation at the end where Sam obviously got to speak and was there with her partner and her young child. And those are the moments that she'll cherish for the rest of her life. 6.5 years at Chelsea, equal Chelsea top goal scorer, all-time goal scorer, absolute sensational. 11 trophies. You can't ask for much more, could you? She was the GOAT, not only of Australian football, but was leading the way at one of the biggest clubs. And we know Chelsea's reigns come to an end, obviously, with Man City taking the title and Mary Fowler lifting the trophy last night in front of the fans. But Chelsea dominated in the time where Sam Kerr was in a purple patch. And she was one of the instrumental leaders of Chelsea, why they were so successful over there, and a beautiful moment. We also want to touch on Ellie Carpenter. She also played a full game last night as well, and Chelsea finished third with Arsenal pipping them in the final moment. But yeah, what a story, and what a great 6.5 years that Sam Kerr had at Chelsea Football Club. Also, too,
Yeah, I
we've seen
think
a beautiful.
wasn't she was like right up there. Sorry, she was right up there with the Ballon d'Or voting time after time, wasn't it? Like, I think she finished third a couple of times, and plenty of people thought that she should have won it a couple of times, and that window has probably now closed for Sam Kerr. But she was one of the best players in the world in her time at Chelsea, and yeah, she's had a fantastic career, and no doubt she'll go down as a Chelsea legend.
Absolutely. And we had also seen a beautiful send-off for West Ham captain Katrina Gorry. She started on the bench in this one. Beautiful moment with the kids there, and a beautiful, frame that they did for Gorry, number 22. Again, West Ham showing a beautiful moment for another Australian. She leaves West Ham in the final game, obviously playing 11 minutes off the bench. She played Man City's, the champions, with obviously Mary Fowler on the opposite side playing a full game, and Man City come out 4-1. So we wish Gorry. It'd be very interesting to see where Gorry ends up. I think we know Sam Kerr's obviously going to America, what we believe, and then it'd be interesting what Gorry does, whether she comes back home on the Gold Coast or Brisbane there, or looks to continue her career. But she's been an absolute stalwart over there. Also, too, let's talk about midweek too, because Arsenal were chasing down second spot, and they beat Everton 1-0 with Caitlin Ford getting 26 minutes off the bench, while Claire Wheeler played a full game for the Toffees. We also seen Brighton finish their campaign off last night in seventh. They went down 2-1 to Tottenham. Charlie Rule starting again, playing 64 minutes, and Claire Hunt was an unused sub as Tottenham finished fifth. So that was interesting that Claire Hunt was on the bench for this one. Everton also played last night as well. Claire Wheeler in the second half was subbed, playing 31 minutes. They got a late 1-0 win over Leicester's Emily Van Egmond. She played only the first half and was pulled at half time. Look at their clubs. Everton finished 8th, and Leicester will now head. They finished last, but they do get a second chance, and will head to the relegation playoff against Charlton, who are one stage leading Women's Super League 2. So that'll be a tough contest for Leicester for survival. So that will be obviously a huge game midweek next week. If we look over at the other side, lots of Matildas again. Alana Kennedy, London City complete their first season in the Super League with a great sixth place finish. Kennedy played a full game in her dominant new role in the sixth with a 2-1 win over Aston Villa. And then Arsenal was the last game, who wrapped it up to an all-important second spot with a 3-1 win over Liverpool. Ford starting and playing 76 minutes, and a return for Steph Catley off the bench for a late cameo, which was good. She only got a few minutes, but great to see her return. Be interesting to see if we see her against Mexico for the Matildas. And also, too, probably a little bit of conjecture around Ford about whether she stays as well, with McCabe leaving Arsenal there last night as well. So not sure if Arsenal are going for a bit of a rebuild, but Arsenal have told Ford that they want her to stay. So it'd be interesting to see if she continues on without her partner, obviously playing together there for a number of years.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. Some Matildas with some decisions to make in the off season for sure. I think Katrina Gorry, I think we could see her in the Brisbane Roar kit next season. I think that's a club that she's played for in the A-League women's competition before, so I could definitely see that happening. But yeah, Ford with McCabe leaving will be interesting as well, and Sam Kerr could no doubt see her in the NWSL in America. But yeah, plenty of decisions for the Matildas to make now that their season is over. Let's not forget as well that Brighton had a fantastic season, and they've got that FA Cup final coming up as well, which we wish
Yes.
Charlie Rule and Dario Vidicic all the best in that final, which should be fantastic.
Yes, massive opportunity for them both to lift silverware. Imagine if Brighton could knock off Man City. I think they had a draw with them last time in the Super League, and nearly got over the line as well. So they can certainly compete with the best, Brighton. So one-off game, you never know.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. All right, let's go to the Bundesliga. As I mentioned in the opener, more devastation because St Pauli relegated as they lose at home to Wolfsburg 3-1. Jackson Irvine playing 89 minutes and Connor Metcalfe started and got the assist in an 89-minute game as well. But Jackson Irvine said after the game that he has 1 year left and will be staying with the club despite them being relegated down to Bundesliga 2. What do you think about Connor Metcalfe as well? Do you think he's going to stick around? And obviously Sam Klein on his way over. I think we mentioned this a few weeks ago when we were talking about Sam Klein that probably that's his level to start with over there. So I think that's probably not the worst thing for Sam Klein to be starting in Bundesliga too. But do you think Connor Metcalfe will be looking at his options?
Ooh, it's a tough decision, isn't it? Dropping down, they'll lose a few players, no doubt, but will Connor Metcalfe be one of them, or does this give Connor Metcalfe the opportunity to start? That's what he's got to weigh up. I think it'll be a conversation with whether they stick with the coach, whether he sees him in the plans of League Two. It's really a tough decision, isn't it? Because you've got to financially balance up. You're not playing the wages of Bundesliga, and Conor Metcalfe's got to weigh up whether he can play. Because if he can't start in Bundesliga 2 or get majority of game time, although we do note that he did start in this game, like you said, and played 89 minutes, and did start the week before as well. So is that a sign that he's part of the plans? It's really going to be down to the individual, isn't it? We're going to see him in the Socceroos, so he's going to be right in the window too, don't forget. So, a few impressive performances, and I don't know about Bundesliga for Conor Metcalfe. If I look at his style and the way the Socceroos play him, I think Holland's really a good destination for Conor Metcalfe's skill and movement. I think he'd fit well into the Netherlands over there. I just think it's the right balance of football. We've got a few boys over there with Bos, and I know we've got Cam Pupion coming up, and I know we've lost a couple with Ballard and Rustic, but who are just dropping down. But I think that's probably where I would research. But again, clubs have got to be interested. But again, he's been there for a little while, so but again, he hasn't never cemented his spot, which concerns me. So Bundesliga's two. It's still going to be ultra competitive over there. It's still Europe. So, what are your thoughts on it? It's really a hard decision, isn't it? I think he's lucky the World Cup window's here for him to showcase because he will get game time under Popper. That's for sure.
Yeah, he's had a couple of injuries this season. Not as many as he did last season, though. So just looking at a couple of his stats, actually, I think it kind of clarifies what you're saying. 25 matches across the Bundesliga season, only 3 starts. And obviously, as you said, 2 of them came in the last couple of games as well. Last season was 10 matches and 3 starts. So a better ratio, but certainly not in the plans for Bundesliga to be starting regularly. And maybe yeah, it was a bit of a well, I suppose they had a bit on the line, didn't they, in the last couple of games? So, but look, I think for his Socceroos aspirations, that Bundesliga 2 is not the worst place to be. I think he will get some good game time at that level, but he might look to challenge himself in a different league and maybe the Eredivisie or yeah, maybe the second tier of Holland. I don't know. Like maybe that's kind of a different challenge for him, but yeah, some decisions to make for Conor Metcalfe for sure.
Yep, definitely. All right, mate. Let's go around the globe of Europe, and we've got Matty Ryan. Well, Levante. Well, firework Levante, I'll call them now. Let's look at the midweek because they started off there. He made some incredible double save on the way to making 4 saves that helped Levante secure a massive 3-2 win midweek. So they got slightly up into that last relegation spot, but obviously everyone was playing midweek as well, and they're still on 39 points as we speak now. And they play their most important game probably of the year. They play Mallorca this morning, Eastern Standard Time at 3 a.m. So they are 18th, Levante is 19th. So the loser of this is probably gone. If they draw, there's still hope. If they win, they're going to put themselves in a fantastic opportunity because if you look at the number of sides that are still in this relegation bout, we have only Elche, who's on 39 as well, in 17th and safe, but only safe on goal difference. Alaves, who's on 40. Girona's on 40, both with similar goal differences to Levante. And obviously you go up, still catchable. Espanyol and Osasuna in 13th position, still not safe on 42 points. So this is it. Levante, that's Mallorca, Chief, 3 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. They're at home. They've got the advantage. It's make or break or do or die for Levante, and we're hoping for a bit of change of luck for the Aussies surviving a relegation scrap.
Yes, that would be absolutely brilliant if we could do that. Probably Sevilla and Valencia only 4 points ahead of Levante, probably just safe, but it just shows you how tight La Liga is this season. But what about Matty Ryan? The form that he is in, I know he conceded two in this game, but some of the highlights that I saw of some incredible saves. That's amazing for the Socceroos to be having a keeper in this type of touch coming into the World Cup.
Yep, absolutely. It's going to play a pivotal part, isn't he? They're going to be small moments. We do note that there is 2 games left in La Liga. So after tonight's games, they will travel to Real Betis, who are safe in Champions League qualification and will have nothing to play for and are not in Europe or any cup competitions. So if they do win and need a result, the mentality you'd think would be on their side, but they've still got to do a job tonight against Mallorca because it'll be even that will be a hotly contest. All right, mate.
For
Let's
sure,
move.
mate.
Keep going.
Let's keep our fingers and toes and everything crossed, and hope that Matty Ryan can get the job done overnight.
Absolutely.
Let's go to the Netherlands. Just heading back to last weekend because Jordy Bos in that game secured Champions League football next season with Feyenoord's 1-1 draw with AZ Alkmaar. So it guarantees them second place in the Eredivisie before tonight's final round. It's been quite some time since we've had a player play in the Champions League, and obviously there's chances of a few others getting that opportunity as well. But nice to see one guaranteed in there for the Champions League, and exciting to see Jordy Bos on that big stage.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. He deserves to be on that stage. A player of his quality. Hopefully, Feyenoord really get a couple of good signings in too to strengthen their squad. We've seen him in Europa, obviously Europe, sorry, during the year, and they didn't they didn't go too good, did they? Like, they're pretty much down the bottom and were beaten comprehensively. But I think with that under their belt and a good season, they were always chasing the tail. They're always pretty comfortable in second with it, a little bit of a tight squeeze there at the end. But we've got an Aussie player where we need him to be, playing the best of the best, and you can't ask much more for that after a World Cup.
No, definitely, mate. I saw in that game as well that Robin van Persie, his coach, is playing him almost like a left winger in that kind of 4-3-3 formation, and we know how much he loves to get forward. So it's a different option that Van Persie is looking at for Jordy Bos. I suppose he doesn't traditionally fit a kind of left fullback spot, so it's about where you put him, and that's where Van Persie has decided to place him in the team. Let's go to Italy. Winnie Haley played a full game in Roma's 2-0 win over Genoa as Roma win the league. Next weekend, they face Juventus in the Coppa Italia final, looking to do the double. Over in Switzerland, Liam Chipperfield gets 26 minutes off the bench as his Sion concede late and draw 2-2 with Lugano. Now, this was a big chance miss, Moppo, because they did miss the chance to sneak into the Europa Conference League playoff spot. They still have a chance, though. They're 2 points behind going into the last game, but do have a superior goal difference. So if they can get that result, and I think they're playing the team that's above them, so they'll be able to jump them into that Conference League playoff spot for the chance for Liam Chipperfield to be playing in Europe next season. And then in the Czech Republic, we saw Garan Qual play 90 minutes and had a solid game in Sparta Prague's 0-0 draw, with the result booking them a Europa Conference League place. But there was some interesting comments from his coach post-game, wasn't there?
Yes, it's nothing like a bit of honest feedback, but probably you would have thought it would have not been played out in the media. But anyway, maybe it was after a response. But yeah, called him, good talent, great talent, but a little bit lazy at times. So nothing like a kick up the bum to get your, surge for next year. But they're in Europe. He has played a bit part and then played at times. He's been on and off. Questioned a little bit about his attitude. So in a response, he's got the talent, but you've got to apply yourself and take yourself to the next level. And that's probably what we haven't seen. We've probably the wrong selection of clubs, and he's been shopped out from Newcastle and vice versa. So it'll be up to him now to really respond to those comments and prove his coach wrong.
Yeah, well, at 22, he probably needs to start forging ahead with his career, and I think that was probably the point that his coach was trying to make, that the talent is there, but the talent's only going to take you so far. So let's hope that, I don't think he'll be in the World Cup squad, but let's hope that he has a good off season and comes back strong for Prague next season. Jacob Italiano also played a full game as Grazer sweeps by BW Linz 3-0. Jacob will now presumably head to the US. Yes, the Austria season is done now, so probably expect to see a few names mentioned in the next couple of days heading over to Florida for that camp. And let's finish our wrap in the MLS. 15 minutes for Archie Goodwin in Charlotte's 3-1 win over Toronto. 90 minutes for Kai Rolls as his DC United scored late to rescue a 1-1 draw. Full game for Kai Truan in midfield as New York City draw 1-1 with the Red Bulls. No Aidan O'Neill as yet, so haven't seen any reports as to how significant that injury is, but fingers crossed he still might be able to get up for the World Cup. And a full game as well for Lucas Harrington as Colorado go down 2-1 to Real Salt Lake. He is the youngest player in the MLS to have played every minute this season. Quite the attribute for Colorado this season. And the MLS All-Star voting is open for 4 more days. So get your votes in for the Aussie boys. You can vote as many times as you like. So just hit refresh and keep going and keep going. And let's see if we can't get 1 or 2 of our Aussie boys as part of those All-Star squads, which would be awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, big one. I know they love the bling and the bang, don't they, America? So, but the All-Star weekend, even brought in the football. So good stuff. Hopefully Harrington gets a run, hey?
Yeah, well, that's absolutely. Colorado's put his name up as someone to vote for. So yeah, let's all get behind him, see if we can get a crack.
Awesome. Absolutely, my friend. Okay, and wow, let's just finish up a little bit in China before we hit the Australian scene. We've got 2 Aussie coaches clash as Kevin Muscat's Shanghai Port score late to draw a 2-2 with Ross Aloisi's over Zhejiang Professional. So 2-2, spoils even between the Aussie coaches, and John Aloisi in the meantime must be living the life in China as his Chengdu wins again, this time 2-1, putting them 14 points clear at the top of the league just after a simple 12 games, Chief. 14 points, eh? Nice work for John as he's dominating the Chinese Super League.
Yeah, it must be absolutely loving his time over there, and yeah, what a buffer already at this early stage of the season.
Absolutely, a good start there.
All right, midweek we saw the Socceroos announce a few more names of coming into our camp over there in Florida. So we saw Patrick Beach, Cameron Burgess, Nestor Irankunda, Mo Toure, Joe Gauchi, Daniel Benny, Aiden Rutsic, Aziz Bayic, Alex Robertson, and Rafael Borges Rodriguez. So a few you can probably just lock in there, but any names that particularly jumped out to you amongst those 10, Mopper?
Well, the big guns obviously in there, but look, we can't go past Mopper's favourite of them all. I was very excited when I found this news out. Daniel Benny, who we've been following now for the last 18 months and tracking after the Asia Cup when we've seen his talent and followed his journey through QPR, and we scored a couple of crackers, and through the World Cup where he's our leading goal scorer in the under-20s. How exciting is it to see him get a Socceroos call-up? Even it might only be for the camp, but that's exactly what we want to hear. We know there's other allegiances with Scotland if he chooses, but he's been in our youth ranks all the way through and has been very successful in those youth ranks, leading obviously our most successful side of the under-20s. So great pick. Good to see Alex Robinson too. I think he's had a very consistent year with Cardiff. It was good to see him. We've seen him picked by Popovich, earlier on after a bit of exile with injury. And then great to see Rafael Rodriguez, who will now be in the Premier League with Coventry after a loan spell throughout the year. He will return to Coventry and they'll be in the Premier League. So it'll be interesting what Coventry do with him. But I think it's good reward recognition for that good performance he put in League One. Again, like Alex Robinson, they're week in, week out starters, and I think that's been rewarded. The rest, I think, they speak for themselves and have been solid within the camp, and probably a lot of starters are in this bunch that he's picked. One of some of our top players. So I think it's just exciting to see probably Rodriguez and Benny get recognised for their efforts.
Yeah, I agree with you in terms of those two boys. Fantastic that they are on Popovic's radar and that he's been able to bring them into this camp. Don't think they'll make the final squad. The only question mark I have is that if he's going to utilise either Benny or Rafael Borges Rodriguez as a backup at right wing back for Jacob Italiano, because you don't really have that style of player elsewhere in the squad. Obviously, Paddy Beach and Joe Gauchi, you'd assume that's a straight shootout for the third keeper spot in the group. Lockie and Burgess here in Kunda Toure, Bajic, and could be a bit of a head-to-head battle between Aiden Hrustic and Alex Robertson as well. We're talking about those central midfield spots or even the kind of inverted tens that probably both of them could play as well. But yeah, it could be interesting, but yeah, you lock a few of them in. But exciting to see the young boys get the chance, and no doubt that they'll prove themselves under Popovic, and maybe it's even a chance for him to talk to them about what he wants them to go back to at their clubs and see during the off season. So I think it's all positive signs for those two boys in particular.
Yep, absolutely. And like you said at the intro, only 4 weeks away. How exciting for that one. All right, let's turn our attention to the A-League men. And geez, didn't we have cracker of a final series? These two-legged ties returned, both at 1-1, and we'll start with Adelaide and Auckland, with Adelaide and a sold-out Coopers Stadium. Obviously, though, the experience of Auckland winning the league last year but failing in finals spurred them on, because they beat a young Adelaide 3-0, and would probably say, you text me after the games on the weekend, where experience has probably won out over both legs in this one. But let's have a look at this Adelaide game versus Auckland. And Selmo missed a tough chance in the opening minutes before he was taken off midway through the first half, as Luka Jovanovic was introduced. And for me, it was a surprise he didn't start, considering obviously the suspension in the first leg. There's been a lot of talk about the tactics in Adelaide, but I thought, well, it's worked all year, so, you can't criticise too much. The man again, Lockie Brook, who caused Adelaide all sorts of problems in the first leg, thumped his shot off the post to put some fear into Josh Smits, who then got some fingertips on Saki's shot, which went over the bar. The resulting corner, though, however, brought the opening goal. And this is my fear of Adelaide with the bodies. I thought Auckland with the bigger bodies. I think this is Adelaide's weakness. Well, they come undone, and the corner resulted in the opening goal when Lockie Brooks' in-swinger was found by unmarked Jake Girdwood Reich, who headed home, and Auckland took control and were up 1-0. Johnny Yole, who's been in great form this year, almost got the Reds back on level terms with just about the last kick of the first half, when his curling effort went just to the side of Michael Wood's post. The first big chance of the second half fell to Ryan White. He was picked out by Jovanovic, but Michael Wood, again, is probably over this two-legged tie, been a huge difference, saved smartly with a strong hand. Johnny Yole then sent one into the stands from outside the box, but the big turning point in the match then followed, with Sam Cosgrove won and conferred the penalty, which was Auckland's first successful penalty in the short A-League existence. That is a crazy stat. Late on, Auckland obviously sealed the game when Logan Rodson tapped home at the back post from a Jesse Randall assist to seal the win 3-0. Chief, reflections on Adelaide's season after a disappointing second leg. They were just found out by maybe a bit of experience and a bit bigger bodies. Do you think that's the case, or do you think they got it wrong? How do you reflect Adelaide's final game and their season as a whole?
Well, in our preseason predictions, I tipped them to start fast, but then fade away at the end of the season, which they had done in a few previous campaigns with a young group. And I think I was quite impressed with them all throughout the season. I think they did a fantastic job. Anthony Andrioli in his first senior management with the Adelaide United Football Club bringing through all that youth, giving them the exposure, sprinkled in with the experience. I think Craig Goodwin was a big miss for them in the back half of the season with his injury, but they still managed to push through. I think it was great seasons for guys like Ryan White, Ethan Allegich, Luke Dazelle. They were solid in that midfield. Johnny Yole, this was probably his breakout season. Luki Ivanovic got much more game time with Archie Goodwin having moved on as well. We saw Kikianis continue to improve. Josh Smits was a great addition, I thought, as a foreign goalkeeper to bring that experience as well. So I was really impressed with their season as a whole. We know that they snuck into that second place in the final minute of the regular season, just about, which is going to give them some Asian football next season, which is exciting for that group. But the big question always with Adelaide is how many of those kids are going to stay at the club, and then what's underneath them with the remaining players that stay, and then the next ones coming up through the academy, and can they keep producing? I think some of the criticism from Adelaide United fans in the past has been that it's completely a business and they're just developing players to sell them on, but where's the success? And whether they see reaching the final stage before a grand final as success, I would think that they should, but there might be some question marks over where's that balance between on-field performance and, developing the talent and then selling them on to continue to reinvest that back into the club. But I think, look, overall, I think they should be very proud of what they've done this season. As I said, securing that Asian football, finishing second in the regular season, and then pushing a quality side like Auckland all the way in this two-legged tie. And look, the 3-0, yes, it was that result for Auckland, but didn't really highlight the game. Adelaide had plenty of chances, plenty of possession, but Auckland is just so tough to break down. I think the experience just rang true so much for Auckland FC.
Yes, absolutely. Steve Coriky's a masterclass. He's been in this position many times, hasn't he? And you've seen that rise through that second leg. Even in that first pulsating leg over in Auckland, it was 1-1 evenly poised. But reflection on Adelaide's season, who would have thought and tipped at the start of the year that they would be runners up in the league? I thought that was phenomenal. So I think a massive tick there. The second biggest tick for me is Asia. They've qualified. What an absolute great opportunity coming second in Asia next year. Another massive tick. The new coach, Colvert, left obviously to coach the Joeys. Big shoes to fill, their experienced coach. And, he's done a fantastic job, hasn't he, O'Reilly? It's just amazing. And the football that he's bought, a massive tick. And then you've bought that youth system that they've relied on, and he's had that connection with them, and he's brought some more great players through. And, geez, this team, if they do stay together, I probably think Allegich would probably be the one that would go for Europe, being at that right age bracket. I think the others are a little bit too young yet, but I think Allegich would be the one that you'd look for, wouldn't it? He's more got the next senior step profile, but it would be interesting if they can hold on to him with the carrot of Asia. But they definitely have an up-and-coming squad. Kikianis is another one that's been mentioned in Europe professional leagues as well. So there'll be, I think, a big task to hold on to him. I think he's destined for a bigger club. So probably two players I think will probably move on, but they'll be hard to replace, especially going to Asia. But they've done the pipeline very well, haven't they? I think the Socceroos have, with the caps that they've had the most caps, Adelaide, I think, from where they've started. So I think the future is always in good hands. You look off-field, Cooper's Stadium was a great average season crowd. It was good football. It's a good atmosphere there. They look like they're definitely heading in the right direction. So massive ticks for me with Adelaide, and I definitely didn't pick them to make the finals. I thought they'd be a little bit too young, but they've absolutely surpassed that. Yes, there was a bit of criticism about the game tactically, how he set up, but really with a young side like they had, they just fell a little bit shorter. But I still think that's a massive achievement, and they'll be disappointed they couldn't put something together there. But sometimes that's how finals football goes, doesn't it? They're one-off games, kind of these ones. So, they're not the typical regular season games. And Steve Corica has been in this situation way too much. And, he's a bit of a fox, and he definitely produced the numbers. Like you said, Adelaide had more of the ball, but again, Auckland more effective, and that's what normally wins football games in finals.
Yeah, agreed. We'll touch on Auckland once we wrap up the second semi-final, which was between Sydney FC and the Newcastle Jets. An absolutely pumping McDonald Jones Stadium. Well done to all the Newcastle and Sydney FC fans that got out to that game and created such an amazing spectacle on TV and an amazing atmosphere, no doubt in the ground, and it certainly came through on the TV as well. Lockie Rose missed a good chance early, teed up by Clayton Taylor. Just couldn't get a touch from a few yards out. And not long after, Clayton Taylor received from a beautiful switch of play from Maxi Burgess, but his half volley just went wide. Sydney FC then went close as Thiago Quintal picked the pocket of Mark Natta, but had his shot well saved by Harrison Devlin. It was the only shot on target for the whole first half, Mopper, as the teams headed to the break at 0-0, so plenty of endeavour, but without the accuracy. Lockie Rose then put one over the bar 5 minutes into the second half. And then Lockie Ballas saw his curled effort go just wide. James Delianov then saved well from Stamatoulopoulos from close range. Got out well to close that one. But he should have done a bit better with a Colacon's strike, as he could only parry it into the path of Piero Quispe, who put the Sky Blues ahead. The Jets then absolutely peppered the Sydney FC goal as Sydney sat in a bit with Taylor, Rose and Bertoncello all having chances before a bit of push and shove after a late challenge from Rose on Devonish Mears. Stamatoulopoulos had the chance to put the tie to bed, but he put his header from close range straight at Delianov. And then also, Pat Wood had a one-on-one, almost sealed the win when his shot trickled past the post. But he was made to pay when the Iceman Eli Adams volleyed expertly into the net to send the crowd wild and the game into extra time. That was absolutely brilliant technique from Eli Adams. Would not have been easy to control that ball, get the speed, get the accuracy. What a fantastic player he is and has been this season for the Newcastle Jets. So we headed into extra time, Mopper. The Jets had some chances in extra time, but we headed to penalties where Harrison Devlin-Mears was the man of the moment, saving 2 penalties, giving Ben Garuccio the chance to send Sydney FC into the grand final, which he did pretty coolly. So we will have now the first ever New Zealand hosted A-League grand final next Saturday between Auckland FC in their second season, taking on Sydney FC, already the most successful champions with 5, looking for their 6th. I did pre-warn you, Mopper, coming into this weekend that maybe that experience would make the difference, and so it proved in both of these ties. But reflections on Newcastle's season.
The plaudits are just outstanding, isn't it? Like, first they win the Hahn Cup, and everyone goes, well, okay, what can they actually do in the league? The pipeline was there from some great work in the previous year, and they've hired great manager Mark Milligan. But at the start started poorly, didn't it? As we noted, but then they just went on this explosion of games, and they end up winning the league, which I think's absolutely outstanding. So they've got 2 trophies in the bag. They've got Asia booked in. The crowds are back. You've seen how much support they had. They've got a really good endeavour and a great coach, and they've got some great talent on the books. It is already starting to get picked apart, though. You can see that. But I think reflections on the season for Newcastle, it's been outstanding. Only to be beaten by penalties in a 2-legged tie that finished 2-2, 1-1 in both legs. Absolutely outstanding. You couldn't ask for much more. I know the hopes of Newcastle were hoping they'd win the penalty shootout, but as soon as it went to penalties, I was worried because of that big man who's Devonish Mears is just incredible shot stopper, was spoiled the party for him, and they probably needed a couple of the Icemen on the bench, that their best players that they're taking off, to take them, because they needed that quality and composure. But unfortunately, with the extra time and the amount of football has been played, they were subbed. And I think Newcastle in a very healthy position. The challenge will be now retain for Asia, but how much is the success of this season going to cost them? We'll soon find out in the next 3 to 6 months, especially with this long off season, which is we all know is too short. will be obviously back in the Hahn Cup and pre-season. But my hat's off to Newcastle. They've scored the most goals. They've played the best football. They're the youngest side in the A-League, and they won the league and the Hahn Cup and nearly made it, apart from a penalty shootout, to the big dance. So, my God, what an absolute plaudits for you, Newcastle Jets. You've had a great season.
Yeah, well done to the Jets and Millsy and everyone involved. Yeah, what an amazing season that you guys have had. I know you're disappointed now that you didn't go on to win the treble, but come on, leave a few trophies for someone else. So it's going to be Sydney FC taking on Auckland. These two were our picks for the champions at the start of the season, Mopper. So one of us is going to be right in terms of who's going to take that out. But I think it's the experience, isn't it? And you look at that along that Sydney FC back line, plenty of experience through there, and throughout the Auckland FC team. Even if it's not A-League experience, it's experience at different levels of football all around the world, and it's going to be a cracking battle. It's a very big contrast to what we might have seen with Adelaide United versus the Jets. This one's probably going to be a bit cagey and a bit, some tough battles in the midfield. Probably not many chances, but it should still be a cracking game all the same.
It will be. Auckland have got the wood over Sydney. They've really struggled, Sydney, against Auckland this year. Auckland, have really controlled the games that they've played, and Auckland have got the added advantage of the home final. Won't that crowd be absolutely electric? It'll really give them the big boost. And they've got Steve Corica in the corner. But Cosnorbo, credit to him, I wondered if they could back up their first leg performance. I did say last week that was the best I've seen Sydney play in a very, very long time. And I wasn't sure whether they could go to Newcastle and do the same thing, but they proved me wrong. They did. And Cosnorbo's got them firing. And this Sydney FC team is not the same side that played Auckland through the year. And they're going to be very, very tough to beat, Sydney FC, especially the performances they're putting in. But as I said, I have to stick with my original prediction. I did tip Auckland to win, and I was very surprised at their league drop-off at the end of the year. But I think with the home final, I think Auckland's got all the cards, and I think Corica will be ready to lift the silverware, which they probably should have won last year. But the steely resilience is there for Auckland. They've got the number one man in Sam Cosgrove there, the goal scorer, against probably the cagiest defence at the moment, which is Sydney FC. So, Lockie Brooks been outstanding in this finals campaign. Expect some more big things. That Jesse Randall, Cosgrove, Brooks combination is going to again cause Sydney some. They'll be stretched, but they stood up against Newcastle, Sydney, so they're going to have every chance, aren't they? And are you still sticking with your prediction, Chief, that you picked at the start of the year?
Yeah, you got to stick with your predictions, don't you? So, yeah, I'm going to back in Sydney FC to take out the title. No doubt it's going to be a very challenging one. Looking at their two previous ties, mate, that game at Leichhardt Oval, when they had to replay it, there was a Popovic goal in the 84th minute and then a Ryan Grant own goal in stoppage time that got Auckland the draw. And so Sydney FC were leading in that one. And then Popovic also scored a goal to put them up 2-1 in the most recent fixture. And then Guillermo Mai scored a late late equaliser, to get Auckland the point in that one. So I'd say Sydney FC fans, if they've got a lead going late into this game, they're going to be pretty nervous because Auckland's done it to them twice already with late goals to get a result. But it should be very intriguing. Obviously, there's the element of Steve Corica coming up against his former club as well. So no doubt there'll be plenty of storylines throughout the week. Okola Con playing on that right has been an absolute revelation, but will Paddy Norway pull the Joe Lolly wild card and pop him in there? So plenty to speculate about all week.
Yep, absolutely. It's story headlines everywhere. What a great an event it'll be too. Auckland puts on a bit of a show over there, aren't they? And they get the opportunity to host the grand final. So, yeah, I'm very excited for this one. Different time set as well, obviously being over in New Zealand. So, yeah, a lot to look forward to. And I don't think out of the two legs, we would have thought the away teams would have come away with it after both legs in the first one were drawn. So No, credit to all 4 teams. I thought they were fantastic, and we're down the last 2 and made the best team win.
All right, mate. Can't believe this is so far down our running order tonight, and apologies. But there's just been so much to get through. But we had the A-League Women's Grand Final with Melbourne City beating Wellington Phoenix 3-1 in this one. The result meaning that they sealed the Premiership Championship double and tying the league record with 5 titles as well. Holly McNamara was the star in this one, scoring twice in a devastating 3-minute burst before half time. One goal, her first goal in particular, was absolute cracker. And Letitia McKenna absolutely outdid McNamara as well with her strike. Stunning long range goal early. In the second half, Wellington fought back through Michaela Woods, but couldn't claw back the deficit. So good to see Holly McNamara really had a breakout moment in this one. And since she's got through those injuries, she's really thrived with plenty of Matildas call-ups. So look forward to bigger and better things from Holly McNamara. Obviously, this is a bit of a dynasty for Melbourne City. 5 championships now puts Melbourne City level with the competition benchmark clubs historically in this one. And they've also got the treble. I mean, their sights, they're heading over to trying to win their Women's Champions League very shortly. Let's touch quickly on Wellington Phoenix, their first season under Bev Priestman, and they've had a fantastic season. They should be very proud of what they've been able to achieve. Plenty of young, talented New Zealand footballers coming through Wellington Phoenix as well. So very exciting times ahead for Wellington Phoenix as well. But as I said before, Melbourne City have no time to rest, probably not a lot of time to celebrate either, because they're heading over to South Korea. Their first match is on Wednesday, taking on Tokyo Verdy. And then if they're able to get through that one, the final of the Asian Women's Champions League will be on Saturday next week. So no time to rest for the Melbourne City women. Yeah, they did leave a few trophies on the table last season, but they'll be looking to take all 3 this season. So we'll be keeping an eye on that game on Wednesday for sure. During the week, also, Joey's confirmed their spot in the Under-20 World Cup. They did lose 2-0 to Uzbekistan. They then faced Vietnam in the quarterfinals where they won 3-0, and they'll now face China in the semi-finals. The goals came from Oliver O'Carroll after a scramble in the box, Giorgio Hazarati, who latched onto a long ball and finished from a tight angle. But the pick of the goals, Mapa, was Akeem Gerald, who had an amazing run, beating about 3 or 4 players, laid off a nice 1-2, and then tucked his shot into the far post. An absolutely outstanding result and an outstanding goal. And looking forward to seeing how the boys match up against China in the semi-finals. And a big final awaits if they can get through China, playing against either Japan or Uzbekistan, who obviously beat them in the group stage. Harrison Devonish in goals, Jordy Bos at left back, Jake Gilbert-Reich and Winona Heatley playing in the middle, Ryan Grant at right back, and then in the midfield we've got Cam Devlin, Eli Adams, Akeem Gerald and Letitia McKenna. And then leading the line are our Matilda superstars in Holly McNamara and Sam Kerr. Look, it's been a big week, plenty to get through. Thanks everyone for listening. Thanks for your time, Mopper. I'm looking forward to doing a few more episodes as we build up to the World Cup, but we'll be back again next week to break it all down. But in the meantime, enjoy football.